I'll grab it and get started.
Yeah, okay. I don't think there's any official starting, it's just,
He's on the phone.
yeah. So we're here to talk about the DRI, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative application that the Village of Homer's putting in. This is the result of a lot of work of a lot of different people. I see Victor, my good friend Victor is here. He did a lot of work, and he and Ed really kind of got the ball rolling on this with the general idea. And we applied last time it was open, I think. I don't think we skipped a year.
2019, 2 years.
Right, I don't think they had one in 2020. So, and we got all right feedback on it, but we're in the queue. It's kind of, that was sort of the thought process of just making sure we got an application in, was get in line, even if it wasn't great, you know, that way when we come back, they've seen us before. So now we're coming back with something legitimate, and we've got support from the landowners, from at least 2 developers who are interested in developing the properties. And we're incorporating a lot of different things that we've wanted here for a long time. The Lincoln statues, the whole rotunda thing there is going to be kind of one of the focal points. And so we're just here to get more feedback because the application is due, what, Tuesday?
The 15th, but we have to get it in prior to, because the site has a tendency to crash on the day of.
Now, you got to understand when we're talking about this, this is not what's happening. This is not going to be the final product. This is just conceptual framework so that we have an idea of how much we can build in that area in terms of square footage and what the mix of residential versus commercial versus parking would be. Really, that's to get that down. Where the blocks go and how it's all done will get worked out later. We were talking with Gary Van Gorder earlier today about it, and he mentioned that Cortland's had a downtown hotel as one of their items, but they never had a developer who had any interest in developing it. So it just kind of disappeared. So we won't be penalized for that, but we have a lot going for us on this application. We've got the fact that it's along the river, and the state is really prioritizing redevelopment along water. So the LWRP, Local Waterfront Revitalization Program, that counts towards it. The issue is that we're waiting on the city of Cortland to complete theirs before we can submit ours, but ours is done. It's also part of the Route 11 corridor redevelopment that we're working on as part of the linear park. And the city of Cortland is also working on redeveloping from there and back towards us. It's along the Peace Trail, which is one of the main bike routes through the state now. So there's a lot going for it, and we're just here to get feedback and input from anyone who would like to. Basically, the concept is, I don't know, should I show it to the camera? I'm not gonna phrase that on the camera, but it's a mixed use development area. So commercial, residential, restaurants, offices, that sort of, you know, shopping, that sort of thing. And it's pretty much going to go from Water Street down past Pine Street. Well,
Water Street's further.
Yeah, but it's gonna incorporate water,
Okay.
because,
Okay.
yeah. So,
John, if you have electronic on your laptop, you could send you the invitation to the Zoom. You can log in and share your screen if you'd like, if you have it.
you can put the map up on there or whatever, or email the map to Dan.
Email. One of the 3 images.
That one right there.
My email is not on this laptop. It's a
Your
Zoom
email.
laptop, sorry.
Okay.
So, but if you log into if you get into Zoom on yours,
I got no internet connection.
I can give it to you.
We do have guest Wi-Fi. I have no idea what the password is though.
So Hal,
Yes.
I have a question. So could somebody kind of summarize what the scope of the project is and what the potential impact is and all that kind of stuff? So I don't know, does everybody already know everything and I'm the only one that doesn't? No?
I think a lot of people know a lot of things, but it's, there's a lot of sort of moving parts in terms of,
I didn't get invited.
Involvement.
yeah, and so we'll show the map, but in no way should people think, well, the map says this is what's going here, so this is what's going here.
Yep. I
It's
understand.
really just how much could we fit? Yes.
Right.
It is safe to say that the built space, whatever goes there, will be in keeping architecturally with historic Homer.
Yeah, that is a
I got that
priority.
comments from Dan, but
Yes.
I didn't know whether he would be one of the developers who would continue down the street.
So part of this is we have to figure out exactly who's developing what and how it's gonna be done, but I think a mandatory component of this is that everyone works from the same architectural guidelines. So for look and feel, so that anything that's built as part of this should pretty much look and feel the same way. I don't want it to be a hodgepodge. So that's something that so whether it's one developer that develops everything or multiple, they all need to adhere to the same guidelines. And so we'll be looking for feedback on that, because I don't know. I know you two gentlemen know a lot. I know nothing. Oh, look at that. The map on the screen.
We are high tech.
So that's roughly the footprint, although it will extend further north up to Water Street.
So here. You get old, the glasses don't even help, so. Parking.
A lot of parking. Which we already have a parking issue, so it's needed. And so that'll alleviate a lot of the trouble that the Main Street businesses are having. And you know, part of this will be funding for some of the Main Street business owners to rehab the back of their buildings, since you know, it's gonna be a no-brainer that they're gonna wanna have a rear entrance to all their businesses. And most of the ones that we've spoken to are already, you know, either want that or already have it, so. Yes, sir.
Couple of questions. Help me out. Where is the old train station here? Is that along here?
No, that's along Wall Street.
Yeah.
But in the middle of Wall Street. Yeah.
That's gonna point to it.
Okay,
that way.
thank you.
That would be right about in there.
Oh,
House, train station.
okay.
So do we envision demolishing the old train station? No, we do not.
And where would the common be if you were going to have a
The-
Lincoln Mecca destination?
So,
There's the old train station.
yeah, there's the old train
Oh,
station.
okay.
So we sort of envisioned the, common area, the statue, I don't know what you call it, a rotunda, I'm not really sure what you call it, as being facing the river, and being sort of in the center near the river with probably a trail and some stuff, between it and the river. And then the development sort of radiating out from that, if that makes sense. So it would be central and close, probably down around Pine Street, between Pine and Wall, but closer to Pine, centrally located.
The big thing, Martin, right now is the flexibility.
Yeah.
Because we have to take a lot of things into consideration, the designs, the buildings.
Some people might not sell their property, and so we have to work around them, and so,
Mhm.
but I do think that putting it in as designed makes total sense.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
More questions?
Victor, can I pick on you?
I've got actually a 5:45 appointment.
I park behind.
I'll lock the door.
Don't take it personally. I just figured you had a strong opinion that you wanted to share with everybody, that's all.
Okay,
I've known you a long time, so.
I've known him longer. So, both of you win gold medals at the Victor Olympics. So, yes, I have extremely strong opinions, and I do not want to share them. I don't want to interrupt the flow of this in any way.
Okay.
This would be a digression.
Okay.
So if it's okay with you, I'm gonna wait till the end.
The
So,
big reveal, I like it.
Al, do we know if there are any buildings currently within the square that are having any historic significance at all, or is that yet to be determined?
I think that would be yet to be determined. You guys would have to kind of go through and look. I don't really think that there's much.
The only one I'm aware of, and I'm not sure that it's the present building, or that I even have the right street number, because street numbers can change through time. I think it's like number 6 Pine Street was the childhood home of Amelia Stone Quentin, who was buried in Glenwood. And she became really big in advocating for the rights of Native Americans out west. Now, she's controversial even
Right.
today, because there are people who say white men had no business shoving our culture onto them, religion and the whole works.
Sure.
But I know Amelia Stone Quentin's primary biographer, whose book is coming out shortly,
Okay.
and helped her do some research. And she's adamant, of course, that the woman's place in history is underrated. That if it hadn't been for the likes of her, some of the male-dominated chauvinistic bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. Would have gotten away with even worse treatment of Native Americans. So I mean, I don't want to get into that
Right.
whole issue. I'm just saying, but from what I can see, that particular structure might be better suited removed
Right.
and a plaque put there if we needed.
Love the idea.
Okay,
Right.
we'll have more plaques around this place.
That's good.
We should be in the plaque business.
Yeah, there we go.
It's a good thing we're walkable.
They have adventure hunts.
As I say, it's a good thing we're walkable.
That's right.
So what other questions, comments that people have?
That's exciting.
The part of it is that, one is the short notice of this, but two, it's also the continuing process. If we're fortunate enough to win, and we think we have a better than fair shot, then keeping this momentum going and keeping everybody involved in the process is kind of critical.
How adverse to us in putting forth this proposal is the fact that Cortland already recently received.
Not,
Because as I see it, this is hand in hand with them.
that's sort of what Gary said earlier today. He said that he thinks that strengthens our case, especially given that we're trying to redevelop the Route 11 between the two as well. He thinks we've got a strong shot. He thinks that I won't go into where what he thinks the battle is going to be, but I think that we have a very strong shot. If we don't get it this year, hopefully they'll have it again next year. We could definitely probably get it next year, and we would just really resubmit almost the same thing as, so.
We've got about 5 esteemed Lincoln scholars who have already.
I know, that's great.
That's gotta carry some weight.
I don't think it does, yeah.
So what is those buildings, what is the current version of what might go into those?
So it's just gonna be mixed use development space, 3-story, no taller than 3 stories.
So resident, but like, yeah, similar like
First
stores on the
floor
first
would
floor,
be-
residential. on the
Yeah.
second. Okay.
First floor would be commercial office, the upper levels would be apartments.
Okay, that was what I'd seen before, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
It was still that.
And as the mayor had mentioned, the conceptual site plan was basically just to determine what square footage of buildings, what types, and how much parking we could get in. There was no, architectural implication to it. This was just from a math perspective to
Right.
be able to, run the numbers on the development, to be able to say, we could get in 30,000 square feet of commercial space, 90,000 square feet of apartments, 150 parking spaces, et cetera, to determine the viability of the project. Ultimately, it'll probably look much different than what you see now.
Is there still things along the waterway itself, or is that not in this version?
there would still be, like a walking trail that will hopefully one day connect to the,
Further down Route 11, et cetera, et cetera.
LWRP.
yes.
Got it, okay.
One of the things we discussed previously, if you look at this, the bottom road,
Mhm.
that would be more of a pedestrian walkway, but it would be a fire lane. So you'd have the posts at the end that could be removed in case, but that would, to maximize the river and the river views and the quiet,
To get comments.
yeah.
Yeah,
Bringing out the mosquitoes, basically.
Are there plans for the east side of the river as far as any kind of a venue or entertainment thing? or
no
parking?
plans.
Nothing for parking.
We do own that property right across, next to Pine Street, the grassy field you see there.
Yeah.
The village does own that, and at some point, we may make that parking lot auxiliary
One
lot.
comment about that, because it just relates to that. In investigating what we plan to do, you'll see, but hopefully it'll integrate with what the village has already. We learned that the river is really strongly regulated, and floodplains are really important. And if we want to be able to build on this side, we have to be sure, this is shortening a long conversation, we have to be sure that a floodplain is going to work there. So I think things like a parking lot would probably not be acceptable, but there could be scattered uses, exercise stations, things like that along there.
We can do a parking lot with pervious pavement.
Pervious, yes, right.
Hey, Tim, when are they gonna move that station there?
Well, there was actually talk of that. They were actually talking about the idea of upgrading the substation in Tully, running a new line of power from that and eliminating that, but it was only talk.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know how real they are getting with it.
Flood.
Yeah. Well, I was really hoping that the demise we had a few years ago there when one of the transformers went down would have done it,
Yeah,
but it didn't.
wishful thinking.
Yeah.
One of the other things we'll talk about a little bit is using some of the funding, if possible, to bury the utility cables along that Main Street in that section as well. Whether we have the money for that or not, we'll see. More questions?
I'll have some later.
Once Victor goes, okay.
Well, I know, we're all waiting for Victor.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so.
No Victor now.
Sometime
sometimes I go before some organizations, they say, you have 3 minutes. And with a 20-minute presentation. But we'll see. So
I
anyway.
like to give you time to run. I like,
Thank you. Thank you. You will find this interesting.
I
This is
believe
gonna
it.
be interesting, funny, and sad.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, about 2 years ago, Ed and I went to Syracuse, okay, and met the people who evaluate this. And they were incredibly firm about one thing and one thing only. They wanted transformation, they wanted excitement, they didn't want to see what other places had seen, and they said, if it comes in boring, forget it. So Ed and I went home, and we brainstormed back and forth different notes, and as Liz knows, 2 years ago, we came up with a basic plan and had some really nice renderings, which you'll see in those approved ones. And then everything got stifled by COVID. Incidentally, COVID appears to be back. So I appreciate the masks here today. I think that's a wise safety move. So in any case, things got stifled. It looked like a few months ago it was opening up. So Ed and I started bubbling again. And I came up with ways to improve the idea and ways all aimed at the audience of the DRI readers. So the important thing about this is just like yours, none of this is fixed in place. None of it is fixed in style. Nothing is fixed. It's to make people be excited and jump up and down, to be followed and augmented by Keystone, making the details be correct, okay? So what this is like, I think of this, picture a dolphin and a shark. Two completely different creatures inside, but both evolved in the same way to solve a problem in the water, how to swim and catch other fish. So what I have done is so similar to yours in so many ways. What I would hope is that you can take my graphics and some of my work, and in the next 7 days, I don't know, are you guys doing the writing? You're putting it together, that you can take what I've got to jazz up and fill up the application. No one will care that the buildings are spaced on different centers. They won't even know, but you will get their attention, okay?
I was hoping this is what you were gonna do.
So let's back up. I just started thinking about how we want to define Homer. And I found 2 years ago from the first HEDC meeting, Homer Economic Development Committee, those who don't know, I came up with the Village of Homer vision statement, okay? And we discussed those things, it just was interesting, just discussed. So I saw last night the census report, and here's Cortland County, and here's the rest of the United States. The Village of Homer is down 2.5% in 10 years. The US is scarcely up by our normal measure, up 7.4%. So we're running in place negative 10% compared to the United States. We need to attract people here. Otherwise, we're just going to disappear. Did you ever hear of Willett long ago? There was this place called Willett, right? Gone. So they're down 14.3% in 10 years. So I took what I'd written then, turned it into a more modern statement, and our image now for the future is we're going to be, based on this development, without it we're not, the 15-minute village. Because the biggest buzzword in the world right now is the 15-minute city, with this guy out west who wants to build a $400 or $500 billion city so that people can get services within 15 minutes of where they live. We could build the world's first 15-minute village by providing all the essential services in these buildings by choosing them carefully. So Homer is going to be a 15-minute village. Second, we are the home of remote work because we have, although it's shit as soon as you go outside of Homer, we have 1 gigabit Ethernet, which works well here. I don't have that speed. I don't need it because I'm not in business now, but I see it's perfectly accessible. With 1 gig Ethernet, a person can work any place they want in the world. So here are basically the start of this is going to be the vision statement. So take them and pass them. And so building from the vision statement, you then want to go to what are we going to put there? And I've got 2 things. I have an animation video and some renderings. And again, the renderings can go to be used as you will, as big and bright as I made them. So I start with a really nice drone shot, going down, showing all of Homer, all of the key part of downtown going to Portland. So you see immediately, we have a very attractive place to be, okay? Then I worked on my Excel spreadsheet, which is how I do AutoCAD, of all the buildings and what they consist of. It was such an easy way to do it. And in here, we're not going to discuss it in detail now, but actually I can let people see, you know what? Let me let people see. Here's watchers out there.
Yeah,
Just take a second.
this one?
I think we have to share the screen, Victor.
Okay, John, will you stop sharing, please? Probably up at the top in green.
Hey,
Okay, share screen. Oh, that's weird. It's just my desktop. Allow Zoom, open system parameters.
Everybody see why I asked for Victor's opinion before? So I
Okay.
could have made this so much easier on everybody.
Maybe let others.
Oh, I know. I understand.
And you ain't seen nothing yet, Russ.
All the lot houses in the park.
It is, it does reach past mine down to yours. Okay, I gotta log into Zoom again. Protection keeps getting added more and more. And I may not be able to get past the protections with people's timeline. It's there. Going back to Dan's email and logging in. I apologize. If this fails, we're just going to pass the stuff around. I imagine it feels like 100 times longer to you. It's infinity to me.
We're good.
No, you're fine.
It's kind of important.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so now.
You've
hopefully
set it
I'll
up
be
very
able to
well,
share
so,
stuff.
you know.
Here's.
you got mute yourself too.
That's really painful for people.
Does not show my screen.
Hey, Sharon.
Yeah, let's see if we can see something else. Usually what it does is share a specific window. This is sharing the whole screen, which is how we are. Here, DRI. It's installing a Microsoft update while we're doing this. Okay, so now people out there can hopefully see
Nope.
at least the idea.
Victor.
Not see. Says sharing is paused, bring your shared window to the front.
Yeah.
My shared window's at the front. I'm seeing it perfectly. There's nothing else. So let's go and hide other things. I'll try to
Shared, I don't think you shared the specific lookup you were looking for,
stop the share
and then restart.
and start the share from this point. You're right. Got it? Voila.
There it is.
And just 10 minutes of time. Okay, so thank you everybody for your patience. So basically, this is, you know, the parking's in a different place. That's nothing. I'm not quibbling about parking, number of stories, any of these things. It's just excitement. So what we've done is queried tons of people about what kind of businesses do you need in Homer? What would you actually shop in Homer? Now, that's a big iffy question to be determined by the economy and by the developer's willingness to take those risks. But this contains the stores you need and services you need to have a 15-minute village, which is going to be our buzzword since everybody else says 15-minute city. It has been accentuated by the Homer Cannabis Dispensary, which I would really like to have.
Okay, I'm getting closer.
You have my attention. I knew Martin was from that generation. I had hair back then. So you walk cannabis down by the river, people can walk it off, be happy, right near a couple restaurants and a nightclub they can go to, not on Main Street by Homer men and boys.
Right.
So we'll see. If you have some control over that, that would be nice. So the first step was, what were we going to put there? And again, this may be useful to you. The second step was to figure out where it would go. So through the magic of drones, which are pretty magical, let's see what we got here. This will be a step ahead on the TV one. Okay, through the magic of drones, you see here a view from on top of the First National Bank of Dryden, looking east towards the river. Okay, so you can see exactly what's there. It is amazing how revealing and interesting these drone shots are to see the details. Okay, then the next step, the miraculous one to me, not the easy one, is what you see on the screen, is taking the AutoCAD Autodesk 3D model of the models, figuring out the angle that the drone was at in 3 dimensions and dropping the model into the space so that you actually see where you are. Okay, we use for 3D walk around.
Shouldn't you have roof gardens on those too?
Got what?
Roof gardens?
Oh, yes, well, the roofs are mostly solar panels.
Ah, okay,
So,
that's okay then.
so there may be, there's some little space for roof gardens, okay? So then what happened is we began producing what it's gonna be. And a key thing, so important, is the river. So there is a walking path along the river, separate from the fireman's way, and consisting of places to eat, sit, shop, exercise. And Martin, I wish you had talked to me. There would have been a Lincoln Rotunda in these renderings. Not too late, not too late. Thank you.
You can work miracles.
Photoshop it in.
That's right, Photoshop it, right there.
So this is light years beyond Photoshop, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, these renderings show, you know, in real life, what's going on. Now, what I was striving for was a Saratoga Springs look,
I was gonna say, that's what I got a feel on
Yeah.
right there.
okay? But there wasn't enough time to do all the variation of Saratoga Springs. So just to accentuate on what you said, you definitely want strict architectural guidelines,
Yeah.
which encourage creativity, multicolors especially. Victor's pet peeve, murals especially, okay?
Yes.
So here, I mean, you see that the river will become a mini San Antonio Riverwalk on this side. There's a lot of engineering involved in that, okay? So you see it happening, looking down. This was an early view where the artist misunderstood the hills in Homer. So ignore that. This is a straight down, which of course can change. And this was when we thought the river was more developable on the east side. And now it has restrictions. Okay, I think that's done. So,
That's how the hills look when you're on cannabis.
right, maybe. So let's close this down, and now we get the grand finale, the reason Russ came. Okay, so we said, let's bring this to life. And we're gonna need to stop. I'm gonna need volume in some way. So
It should come through.
If you
my
check the
microphone's
box.
not on. Do you want me to turn my microphone on for you?
No, when you check the box, I think, when you reshare,
Yeah.
there's an optimized for video.
Yep.
Box.
Okay.
Sorry, I
It's-
can let you say that.
Oh, you're fine, please.
Liz, if you're sure, come look,
Yeah.
because I don't see it. I just see these choices.
I think you have to stop and restart it.
Okay,
And then when you do the share screen.
okay, you stay here and let's see.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, I got to do it from the share screen, you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Share
And
screen,
then see right there. it says
share sound, but I don't have any sound on.
Got it. And then you, well.
No,
I
it should
think
just
was
come through.
do it.
Okay, let's see if sound comes. Share. Please install the Zoom audio device.
That may not happen.
Okay, that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna just, we're gonna do it without sound.
You're gonna sing and dance?
So,
There you go. We can
so
still
what we
see.
have is transform the Village of Homer downtown revitalization initiative. And first, what it shows,
This is the flash,
flash,
your flashiness for the applicant.
this is the flash. So here's just a quick view of looking down on the buildings from the top, but it turns into, so here is the drone view of existing Village of Homer, which is a view, of course, I'd never seen before. And I really like how the downtown buildings, because it's actually a photograph, feel so realistic. And then what happens after a few seconds is the buildings get superimposed on it. And the rest fades away. We go into 3D model mode. And now we are in the project.
Oh, wow.
And it has trees.
Cobblestone?
Cobblestones, here, stop, every time you stop it, you will get,
I think you can see the one on the PDF.
every time you stop it, you get a sharp 3D view of what's going on. You don't see it up there, but it's totally sharp 4K resolution, so I won't stop it. You get the reflections of what's around you, the walking people, the bicycles, the cars,
The cannabis.
and it really, you can watch it here after. You just are there, seeing what's going on. in
So is
Homer.
this part of what gets submitted next week?
I'm certainly hoping so. You put it in the YouTube and you make a tiny URL, so they only got to type in 6 letters, and you let them
So
watch
do
it.
you want to copyright 15-minute village first?
I could. Let's just say all this is copyright Victor Siegel.
I don't believe that.
Okay. How do you think it showed up? So this is a culmination, you can guess, of an awful lot of work.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm
That's
impressed.
absolutely incredible.
What?
I like it. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. This doesn't get the money.
Yeah.
We'll pass on the razor wire that one. time.
Exactly. I was like, I don't know if we need razor wire, but you know.
So Dan, will this be available on the website? On YouTube?
Once you put it all together.
Well, yeah, the
Right, it's simple.
recording of the meeting will be, but you'll probably want a direct link to Victor's.
Oh, of course, right. I'll just, in my YouTube library, whatever it's called, I'll just put it up there, make a tiny URL and give it, and it just gets added to text.
Okay.
And you
Now-
can't click on it. Well, maybe if the application's a linkable PDF, you could, but that's not what you're sending in. You're just sending in text.
They'll get to it. But we do, we have to give a presentation. Now, I know that Keystone is having renderings done. How are they gonna sort of, with possible to submit both sets?
The renderings that we're doing are before and after pictures, so, Wall Street, here it is now, here it'll be with the new buildings. Pine Street, what we are calling New Street, which
Right.
is the streets that run in between. And they'll show buildings in the architectural fashion of the Homer.
All right, good.
And what we would be submitting would be not a video, would be a standing
Right.
before and after picture. When you send that in, John, tell you what kind of file you can submit.
Probably PDF.
But yeah, we could put a link to that. If you put it on YouTube just as unlisted.
You could probably include a link, say, if you want
Yeah.
to look at this, click on this.
Yeah, and I would just talk about it as, another conceptual, plan,
Right, it's,
basically.
you don't even draw attention to the fact that it's different. It's just our concepts
Right.
we're submitting.
Yes, yeah, I like it. I think, and I would definitely submit both, yes.
Yeah.
Because just talking to Gary a little bit today, they get kind of bored looking at these, and so they do want this kind of stuff. So, yeah, this is
Especially if you
fantastic.
have
Victor.
candidates in there, I think that'll.
You knew it was gonna give you a big thumbs up.
I had high hopes, but I wasn't sure.
Victor, would it be arduous to incorporate a Lincoln thing someplace in there?
In 7 days, yeah. There's a whole sequence you go through just to get stuff aligned.
Okay.
So why don't, I hate to say no to you, why don't you talk to me separately, okay? Because it might be, if I can get, in one of these renderings, I don't know what you've got to start with.
Well, the maquette that's on the stage is what they're looking at now.
Do
Okay.
we have
Let's stay after and talk.
a digital photo or rendering of that, Martin?
I have an image of what that was going to look like on the green originally.
Yeah, if you could send that to us, because I know that right now we literally just have the photos that we took of it with our phone.
Do you have a copy of the image of the project as it was
I'll back to right.
proposed for the green?
Well, it's just a video. I don't think it's I don't have an actual picture of it.
I'll send you one. Okay. I came across another one today. Yeah, okay.
Let me just say, time is short, and the most important thing that Hal and Pat said is none of this is fixed in stone.
Right.
And so
I just found this
I
so
wouldn't push,
impressive.
they gotta put this thing, I just came and laid on them a movie and 16 renderings and a vision. That's gonna be hard enough to deal with, to get in,
That's not
so,
worry about.
but I wanna see it.
As long as it's incorporated.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean,
in the narrative.
we
Show
have
me
that
everything
photo.
you got, just to take into consideration as it moves along.
Okay.
We don't have to do
So,
a
just-
We
It was on the
can
green?
other items, right?
Yeah, we would.
Yeah.
So Victor and Martin, we have to do a presentation on this at a date to be determined. So we don't have to have this 100% by the 14th. All right, we can
Okay.
do that flyby and incorporate that later in another month or so.
Okay,
And the maquette is out here on the stage.
and is this 3D or is it just something in
I
Photoshop?
think it's Photoshop. I don't know.
Okay, let's walk out and see if that.
Thank you.
When we do the presentation, we may want to bring these two guys, for real. I think that Martin talked about the,
We can.
and then to have Victor. Victor's a good presenter.
I think it's an unfair advantage for us, but I'll take it.
All right, thoughts?
Anybody from Zoom land?
Was Kevin able to see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Victor, that was amazing. Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Second that.
Fred, I know we talked about it just briefly last night, but do you have any insight from the town? Do you think the town would be willing to sign the letter of support for something like this?
I don't know why they wouldn't, Pat. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. I just had one question. Obviously, this is the first time I've seen this. you didn't, on the first paper, you showed 150 parking spaces on the south end. Is that still in Victor's?
I had the parking spaces in the middle because I learned that old people don't want to walk very far, even the length of a building. But there was a big question whether it would have to be a parking garage or not with 2 stories. I'm not in favor of a parking garage because of how it destroys the image there. So it's a technical question about how many spaces do we really need? And I would lean towards, I think of Skinny Atlas in that way. You need a lot of parking
Right.
spaces for a couple pretty small streets.
These guys, they did all that, came up with what would be going in there. So what would be needed to support the residential, commercial, and also to provide more parking spaces for the businesses along Main Street. So
Yep.
they got it covered.
So the answer, Fred, is my spaces are in the middle and they're probably not enough. So it could be a compromise of those in the middle and some more on the south side to add up to enough because of that question of people not wanting to walk. You see downtown, where if somebody can't park in front of Village Food Market, they don't shop.
John, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I would just say that we need to keep in mind with all these pictures that there are a myriad of codes and regulations and I mean, the DEC and
Yeah.
that river, that there wouldn't be a prayer they would let us do anything like what was in your video. The seawalls would be
Oh,
totally
right,
out,
right.
natural
Those-
shorelines.
Yes, I don't even want those to show.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
Because there's just so many DEC regulations when it comes to regulated rivers. Wildlife connectivity, you know, I live on Little York Lake and you can't build a seawall because you would prevent the turtles from being able to walk from the water into your lawn. You know, there's your docks have to have space, et cetera, et cetera. So all I'm saying is that what we conceptualize, visualize, and what the end product winds up being will involve a whole lot of back and forth with building codes, fire codes, energy codes, DEC requirements. A large portion of our site is in floodplain. Some of it is actually in floodway, which is a whole different set of requirements. So there'll be a lot of work to get from where we are to what we actually are allowed to do. And I think we just have to be somewhat careful as to what we show. I wouldn't want to show that picture.
Right, you do not
The
show
river,
any
because
pictures showing the river
Anybody
like
with
that.
it.
You guys
on a
never
state
saw
level-
it. It was from another presentation.
Anybody on a state level is gonna see that.
Yeah.
That was round one before
Yeah.
I knew about it.
You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. So there'll be a lot of dancing when we get to a point where we have a viable, buildable, approvable project.
If this were accepted, and we got the funds, roughly what kind of time frame are we looking at? Years of, how many years?
No, pretty quick.
Very
It
quick.
could happen quickly.
Yeah, they want projects that can go and get completed right away. So we've got a number of the property owners already on board. And we've got the 2 developers who are on board and ready to go. So yeah, we would move as quickly as possible.
I got a question for Victor. You said at the beginning, your presentation would be exciting, funny, and sad. Did I miss the sad?
No, the sad was if they turned me down.
We didn't get the sand.
I didn't get the sad.
Sad is no seawalls.
I was gonna say.
I was already resigned.
What's seawalls?
Exactly.
I recognized that the seawall was a bad idea to start with
That was
and
pretty
was
good.
illegal.
I like the San Antonio Riverwalk, so I
Yes.
get it, but.
The write-up asks, as a qualifying question, if we would be able to have the project underway within a year. So they don't, the state has had a lot of projects that they've approved funding for, and years down the road, nothing has happened. So they kind of want you to commit to moving forward in an orderly fashion.
Would this sort of project have any impact on Cortland's desire to have lodging? If the hotel thing fell through. I mean,
Well-
if this became a Lincoln Mecca, Harold Moser's words, not mine, Harold Moser's words. Heritage tourists, pilgrims have to have a place to sleep.
I'm sure that we're gonna see another hotel come up in Cortland in the next couple of years. I think Dutchess is gonna bring enough sports teams and that, you know, we need another one with a college and everything. I think I just saw that someone did buy
Yes,
the Ramada.
yes.
Yeah,
They're
they're
gonna redo
renovating
it,
it.
so
Yeah.
that's good.
Victor, you'd mentioned also remote work. Was there anything else that went with that other than just access? to-
Yeah, there's a building for you in this. And you can see clearly, a startup entrepreneurs building.
Okay,
You can see it on the Excel one that shows where it is. You can do the layout.
okay.
But here was my thoughts from the past, memories from the past, and you tell me right or wrong. My sense was that the village would be aggressive about building the infrastructure on as much property as you could acquire to
Yep.
start with. And that basically the developers would be responsible only for the rectangles of the building. Everything else would be provided to them. That's what we're spending our money on.
I believe that is still the case, right? And,
Yeah.
you know, so a huge chunk of the 10 million would be still there for the developers to offset their costs.
Mhm.
So, but that's the plan, yeah.
Okay.
More questions, comments, concerns? So you wowed them.
Good.
He always does. He never disappoints.
All right, well, if anybody thinks of anything between now and the 14th, you can email us or call us and let us know. But,
So do you want some of this to be integrated now or wait, take a deep breath and do it after? Your guys' decision really.
You have, Victor, you have all of that info digitally.
In a Dropbox, JPEGs.
If you could, email that to us or
Sure.
HTTP it
Sure.
to
I'll
us,
just
we
put it in the
can,
Dropbox and.
we can, I mean, I think those, some of the aerial, the
yeah,
aerials would be very valuable.
Mhm.
We don't have those. I'm guessing that our before and afters, might be more effective because it would show the after shot
If
would
you can
still,
tie it together.
would still show the across the street being, across and so forth. It wouldn't be a street, it would be our street,
Right.
But if you have them in a Dropbox,
Yep.
we
Yeah.
can,
I have about
We could
15
plug in,
different Zoom pictures. So, and they're all incredibly high quality.
and your Excel spreadsheet,
Yes, I like that one.
So, like this one, this you can use as a guide to see all the streets you're looking at. Is it Pine, is it Wall, is it the new street in between, et cetera. And you just ignore a conversation about the parking lot. Stick with your parking lot, don't ever even talk about mine, and they won't even notice.
also,
actually, Victor, I would tell you that if we are fortunate enough to get funding, I think we would probably, we had discussed this today, we would redevelop the back end of these Main Street buildings, so
Mhm.
there were two fronts,
Yep.
if you will. And probably our development here would probably have a central area where our Lincoln Monument would be. There would be, commons and park-like development around it. then we would probably have a crescent of like commercial restaurant type spaces that
Okay.
open up into the commons. Probably have apartments that open up toward the back of it. And the parking would probably take place between the revitalized backside of the Main Street buildings
Okay.
and the new
So you're
development.
already
So-
involved in the right.
yeah,
Sure.
so it'll wind up quite different, but if we had tried to do that to determine the workable square footage of parking, commercial space, residential space,
Mhm.
we'd have kind of had a nightmare on our hands, so.
So I'd say only think about, there's a reason, thoughtful reason why each one of these stores and services has been provided. Just try to think how they fit realistically into yours to create the 15-minute village. And don't leave Martin out with that comment.
No, we got the cannabis. I might say X-nay on the dollar store nay.
Okay.
Only because
Yes.
I have heard from the folks in this village that they do not want a dollar store.
Okay, that's fine.
Is there a pharmacy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Drive through it.
That's the cannabis
Right,
store.
Yeah.
Right next door. Now, Dan McNeil, his space has got to be taken into consideration for that too.
We are,
Because you've tried to do a pharmacy, you wouldn't have two pharmacies, there's no market.
yeah. Yep,
So there's
no,
a lot of juggling.
that's why we've moved the boundary up to Water Street,
Mhm.
because he wants to be included in all of that.
So
Rightfully
luckily,
so.
my drone sat above his buildings and he got it all the way down.
I see, that was perfect, yeah.
Victor, do you have any pictures with the mayor in it? Anything that,
Waving from outer space.
in a canoe on the river?
We don't need any of that.
Up a river without a paddle.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
Thank you all ever so much for.
Thank you guys for coming. Hopefully we'll get this.
Yep.
I think we have a strong case.
I think we do.